there you go. So if you can click on curriculum, you click on that. It will take us out. Might have to go out. And Homer, are you able to see the curriculum website on the Zoom?
No,
No? Okay.
we're still seeing the slide.
That's right. Yeah. So now if you go on to our curriculum site and you go up to the top and you put College Saddleback. Yeah. And then you go to program and you press search. What you'll be able to see is all of our programs are listed. And then let's pick one. If you go to reports, program summary. There it goes. So your program summary should pop up. And if you do this and you find that there's things that you see that might not, you have some feedback on how it could be clearer, or there's things that are not easy to understand, definitely let us know, either through the curriculum committee or to my office directly, and we'll make updates as we go. There is some level of standardizing the template so that it looks the same for each program. What was happening was that we had so much data entry that we were able to standardize most of it, but you might catch some where we might have not caught like a way of formatting. So if you see any of that, just let us know. And it should be presenting kind of what we normally are used to. We may talk about making enhancements to how we present this information to students in the future, but we tried to use and get as close to what we've had in the past. Claire?
So now that the programs are on here,
Mhm.
when we go to make program changes, will there be a system in Meta? So it won't be paper-based anymore
Yeah.
eventually?
Eventually, Michelle, did you want to talk about that, or do you want me to? I'll add. So Michelle and Kim Stankovich are going to be working on.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I'm like, I couldn't find my unmute button.
Oh, okay, there you are.
No, yeah. So we are working at right now. We have to, just like we had to build a queue in Meta for the courses to go through the different steps. We still have to do that in Curriculum and get together a program manual on how you would do those revisions or even enter a new program. And at this point, Meta is going to be going through a minor change in how what their user interface looks like. So we've had to hold off. So we couldn't build it because otherwise everything would, change a little bit for what we would be showing you. So yes, it's coming, but not yet, not quite yet.
Our original plan was to work on building out that queue and process this fall, to then perhaps start implementing in spring. Depending on when they do their upgrade, we'll try and work on that as soon as we can afterwards. So it may hit, a little bit after that. But we're very excited because that potentially could put the program process on Meta as well, which would then almost eliminate the paper process. We are looking at also putting in the initiation portion to that process queue so that you would be able to initiate, get the approval, and then go into the build. It would extract some of that information. So that's our dream scenario. It may be just phased out as we start to implement those pieces. Any other questions? I love me a mouse pad. You need to get mouse pads for this. Yeah. Great. And then the next thing we're doing with Meta is that we actually are doing these in Meta for the first time. We are very excited about this because it has. Oh, no. Wait, what happened? We just kicked everybody out.
Gremlins. Don't send it, just go back in.
What does that mean?
It should be.
We. They're still moving.
No, they're there.
They're moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah, they're there.
It's working now for Zoom.
Yeah. Hi, Zoom room, are you still there?
Yes.
Yes.
We're here. Yeah.
Okay, good. We thought we lost you for a second. All right, so the catalog, for those of you who are not intimately involved in building the catalog, it is using Meta is going to save us almost like a month and a half worth of work. And that's like 40 hours a week data extraction and importing into the other and rebuilding. And so our Office of Instruction is extremely excited about this change. It also is a reduction in costs because we'll be dropping Catalog, which is our current catalog provider. And so we'll be having some cost savings from that as well. So keep an eye out for the new catalog. We are working with our catalog team to build it out. There are things that we're recognizing that we might not have changed for a long time in our catalog. So we're looking at some descriptions and things like that that we want to make better. And so keep an eye out for the spring addendum that will be in the curriculum meta system. Oh, is that working? There. And then EPA. There.
I should come up there probably.
Yeah. The way they don't see you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm gonna do these in reverse order, because great news about the programs being in curriculum, because there was a trickle down to EPA where a lot of our work also was manual because we had to recreate all of the courses, all of the programs manually in Inventive Improve. So based upon that and based on some weird changes that are going on at Inventive that I don't need to go into, we have made the decision to move to Meta for program review, administrative unit review, SLOs, and as well. And it will, once all of this falls into place, it will be very smooth. Until the programs are in there, obviously it will take a while. But we are currently also in the build phase. We're working on our program review module. There are some definite, for program review, it's going to be very similar because those were all text boxes. What will be a benefit in Meta is that there's the same workflow that currently exists for curriculum will exist. Well, we can change the people, but there is a workflow process. So we will know when you submit your drafts, you don't need to tell us manually. We'll be able to write notes to you. So the feedback will come directly in Meta. You know, you can give feedback back to us. It's just a much better workflow system, particularly for program review. So we are working on that. We started in the summer. We will, and the program review is essentially done. There's also going to have to be a change to the main screen of Meta that we requested. I'm surprised that no other colleges had ever requested it, and they said they could do it, which is previously they had everything under curriculum. So if we were going to add program review, administrative unit review, AUOs, SLOs, that was all going to be under that tab that says curriculum, which we felt would be very confusing, particularly for the AUR side of the house. So we got them to add, when they do their new user interface, add a new tab that says reviews and assessment, something we haven't figured out what the terminology is going to be, but there will be a separate tab. So it won't all be under curriculum, it won't be so confusing. And your program reviews will be there, objectives and action steps will be incorporated into it, but you'll also be able to update objectives and action steps. So they're really working with us and allowing us to create it the way we want to. We haven't started working on SLOs yet. That's what we'll start on this semester. It won't have the same functionality. It will definitely be a simpler system than in Nuventive in terms of putting in assessment results and use of results. But we think that the benefit of having it all in one place, the feedback between curriculum and SLOs, will outweigh that simplicity. And sometimes simplicity is actually better. You know, we don't need complicated systems sometimes. So I can't tell you exactly what is, what we'll lose in that transition, but will definitely be more easier, I think, in the end, and we can run any kinds of reports we want. So that end will be pretty similar. So we're very excited.
So it's just gonna be up there at the top of
So,
college?
No, once you log in, can you log in?
Oh, no, this is just the public site.
Okay, when you log
When you
in,
log in to your system?
yes.
Okay.
When you log into the system and then you see proposals, curriculum, whatever there's 3 tabs currently along the top. This will add a 4th.
I don't have a login.
Yeah, okay. And it will be similar. You'll launch it. I mean, the terminology is all going to be the same, which is also going to be great. You launch their proposals, it goes through an approval process. So I think everybody will find it easier. So as we get closer to completion and when we have something to demo, we'll come back to this meeting. I think sometime this semester, we could definitely demo the SL or the program review module. So we will, and potentially even the AUR module. So we'll come back and demo that shortly. Any questions on that? We're excited about it. We, EPA looked at a number of different systems. We had demos. We've weighed the pros and cons, and we think this is best for everyone. And it's a good time to be doing it because Nuventive, as many of you know, because we were coming to the meetings for a year and a half, 2 years, probably more than 2 years, because it was when we were on campus, telling you, oh, Nuventive is going to have a new interface. It's going to be all completely different. It's going to be great. We'll be able to link it up with data. They never came through. Never to this day have not come through. They're still building a system. So it was going to be a whole new interface anyway that we were going to teach you. We believe that Nuventive is, I don't know, something going on there. And you're going to learn a new system anyway, so why not do this? So that's that side. Program vitality inquiry process is the other item for EPA that I wanted to talk about, which is everybody knows about that process. We did a revision of it last year and it went approved by Senate, which is streamlined completely. So if you've ever looked at that process before and your eyes cross and you thought, I don't want to do this, please look at it again because it's greatly simplified. As EPA coordinator, I will actually be shepherding anyone who wants to go through that process through the process, working with the academic senate, because they're actually the ones that lead the process and creating the committee and looking at getting the data together and all of that kind of stuff. We currently have the PVI process linked to the CTE board report that's done every 2 years. So if you're a CTE program, you've been heard about it, and we've come to talk to you at the CTE meetings about it. And there are a couple of programs that are going to go through PVI, which is great because nobody has ever elected to do it. In the 20 years that I've been at this college, nobody has ever elected to do the program vitality inquiry report process. People either just decide to discontinue on their own, or somehow the program doesn't get, it doesn't get revitalized, it doesn't get canceled, but it doesn't get revitalized. And that's what's important to understand about this process, is there is a commitment from the college to go through this process. And if it's deemed that this program should exist, then there will be a revitalization process. So it's not like you just stay as you are or discontinue. Those are 2 possible options. But the other option is that the college will provide whatever is necessary to revamp that program if necessary, because it's needed. It's needed for the community, it's needed for our students, what have you. So it should be seen as not a negative process, not just leading to discontinuance. And in my experience, most programs that go to discontinuance already recognize that they need to be discontinued. And mostly we're talking about certificates or degrees or OSAs within a department. We're not talking about eliminating whole departments, right? We have some programs that have 20 certificates. Do you need all 20 certificates? Are they all getting completed? Has the labor market changed? What have you? So it's a way to look at the programs within a department as well. So I will be reaching out to any of the people on the CTE list that did indicate they want to go through PVI. If any of you have a program that's struggling for whatever reason, you're dropping in enrollments, you don't have any completers, whatever it is, contact me and we can talk about going through the PVI process and if it would be beneficial for your firm. All right, any questions on that?
Yeah, can you talk real quickly, when you said, I think the scary part for people is
Yes.
if it's deemed, so what does that deem process look like? Because
Oh, so there is a committee that gets put together. If you decide or somebody else, anybody can call for a process for a particular program. But when that program is going through PVI, every single faculty member in the program is involved in it. The academic senate president is involved in it. I don't have the whole list of my head. The EPA coordinator's involved in it. The VPI is involved in it, your dean's involved in it, but it's very faculty driven. There is a whole set of qualitative and quantitative data that's used. It's not just numbers, there are other factors. And all of this information is put together. There's also a public forum. So if the community wants this program, they could step up and talk about it as well. So it's a rich program, but it's a process, but it is fairly simple because it's all run through the Senate. It really just requires getting that data together and then having conversations about it.
so is people familiar with the program, not like some outside entity, like committee from a college,
Correct.
like, yeah, we're deeming you.
It's the faculty within that program primarily that are involved.
And I think that committee that you described has all of the key folks on campus that have interest in, figuring out whether or not that program, how to support it and how to make it better if that's where we're going. And I think the other important thing, Claire, is that what you mentioned, there are a lot of sub programs within an area. And so in those cases, some folks might decide off the top, but that's something that maybe is not as relevant. So that's really important to note as well. It doesn't mean that the program's discontinued. It's just that piece of it might not be relevant.
And in every case that a program is discontinued like that, it hasn't been.
And then this particular situation is unique in that it's the process for the 78016 CTE report actually triggers it, as opposed to another scenario where a group of folks might decide that it's time to reevaluate the program. Like we're looking at getting ready to do something not as formal, with HIT, but if it were wanting to get formalized, I think it would go through a similar process.
Yeah, and the process, it talks about the different triggers. One of them is the CT board report. One is just the faculty in that department saying, hey, we want to.
And we want to bring in the campus to have that conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
Question about that. This year's data, is it going into Nuventive?
Nuventive.
Okay.
Yeah, so results from last year are due again by the third Friday of September. Remember, I haven't looked at that recently. Third Friday of September in Nuventive. So everything will be Nuventive until such time as so we believe this will be the last year for program reviews and AUR in Nuventive. But until I see it, I don't after going 3 years, having promises made and not yet. So we'll see. We're hoping that in the spring. And Meta has been extremely responsive to us and has made all the changes we asked for.
Great.
First time I met with them, I was like, oh no, what did I do? And then they made all the changes that we asked for. So so they've been very responsive. So we're not anticipating the same problem. So we're hoping 2022 program reviews, no, 2023 program reviews will go through that.
That's exciting too, just having all of our same systems for everything.
It will be so much easier for all of us.
Training for people, so they shouldn't freak out.
Yeah, we will have lots of training. That is our goal. All of spring will be making ourselves available to train, creating. This semester we'll be creating documents, or early spring, depending on when we get things finalized, documents, so step-by-step screenshots and all the things like that. So we will provide whatever you need. And as always, my team, Margot, Kathy Dam, Shuka, and myself, we are available to always help you through, hold your hand, whatever you need to get through the process. So, no,
So if we're doing our program review this fall, we'll continue with the current tool and not be using.
correct. Anything that's due in December, so that would be 2022 PR, and UR will be in. Most likely, although I'm not gonna hang my hat on this one either, SLO results from this year, so 22-23 will be in Meta, but I'm not sure 100%.
Right, we're hoping. That's a good goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Claire. And Meta actually is like surprisingly very generous with their time. They meet with the curriculum team once a week for like the last 3 years. So I'm happy to hear that they're doing just as good for program review. So next we have early college. Carrie.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. You'll be happy to know I'm talking about early college today and not the CTE board report 78016. So those of you that work on that process, I probably hopefully got a little smile behind the mask. But today I'm going to share with you just a quick update, more of a commercial and a thank you on early college. Many years ago, the state of California passed legislation that allowed us to provide college courses in the regular school day at the high schools. And in fall of 2020, Saddleback, we launched a strategic initiative to embed some of our courses in the high schools. And what that does is it opens access for high school students that might not be finding their way to the college campus. In many of your classrooms, you have college or high school students in them. I see lots of nodding heads, yes. But there are many high school students that either can't find transportation or their schedules don't allow, or multiple reasons. They might not even see themselves as a college student yet. So California passed the legislation that's helping us target students who were not finding their way to Saddleback College. So fall 2020, wasn't that a great year to launch a new initiative?
Do you remember when we said 2020?
So we started with about 100 students. We continued with our efforts. That was our goal. We were very excited about the outcome of being able to recruit that many students. We had several pathways that started. That was in business department, computer information management, and automotive. Most of the opportunities we provided as a 2-year pathway. And I'm really excited to share that we had 35 students in that initial cohort complete last spring with a 2-year certificate degree. We had 35 total. Of that, 23 were in the general business certificate and 12 completed the cybersecurity certificate of achievement. So wonderful kudos to everyone involved in making that happen.
Yeah.
During COVID, exactly. So that's very exciting. So let's fast forward to our current efforts. So launching in 22-23, we're expanding in multiple areas the opportunities for students to participate. Every site in Capital Unified is looking to add a general education course. So we'll be doing a late start for that. And Saddleback Valley, we have several areas, not only the business and the SIM, but we've also expanded with automotive opportunities, culinary, horticulture, and other general education areas too, including Spanish. We'll be offering journalism, some English classes. So we're very excited about those efforts. We'll probably have 20+ sections this fall to really help students find themselves to Saddleback College. So thank you to everyone who participates. It is very complicated. It's tricky working with our high school partners because there are many layers of coordination that need to take place, but we're getting it done. And I can really see that at the end of this year, as we come into a new normal of our working environment, that it's really going to expand even further.
So is it just like a mobile classroom? Do you just go and take space at the school with your stuff and just?
So that's a really great question. So essentially, yes, we're taking a college class and we're taking it to the high school site and providing it there at their location. In some cases, it's during the bell schedule. In some cases, it's after the bell schedule, but it's still in that regular day. So depending on the course, it could be very easy if it's a lecture. If it's a lab, like we've had some experience with automotive at the high school site, where it's a little bit more complicated because we need to ensure the right supplies and materials are available. If you're interested in learning more or would like to see about your courses being embedded at the high school, please let me know. And it's going to be a great year. So thanks for the time.
Yeah, and then your dean too, because
Yeah,
Carrie
oh,
works
absolutely.
really well with the deans to try and see if there's additional resources we might need to bring in. So definitely between Carrie and your dean, you'd be able to get those new classes or programs out there. What's nice about the early college and dual enrollment is when it's early college, those classes are separated out just for the high school students. So you don't have the mix, and we're allowed to do that under this legislation. And then what the other great thing is that we actually get a full apportionment for the enrollment, because these students technically they're in this category where we get the full 5,000 or something for funding as opposed to 3,000, which we are getting now. Because the idea is that they're taking courses, not necessarily going to be a full completion. And then the extra resources that we would need to help support the program.
And if that wasn't enough, it's still free tuition for the high school students to
That's
participate.
true.
And because we're at the high school site, the high schools are paying for any textbooks that are required. So while we want to maximize ZTC as much as possible, there's really no cost to the student. It's convenient and they can see themselves as a college student.
Yeah, and there's actually additional pots of funding to help support the partnership. So our K-12s are struggling as well. So in some of our conversations, we've talked about how do we access other funds to maybe help with the textbooks or look at our ZTC options.
Question from the chat, what email to send if they need my email in there? What email to use?
Trish, you want to put that in for me? Yeah. It's K Irwin. K Irwin at Saddleback.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, And I think next is our learning. We are struggling with the mouse. It's actually, you're just having to drag in. Different, and you can use a piece of paper.
Yeah, that would-
I tried to put Post-its, but that wasn't. Not working. Thank you. You wanna,
If it works.
yeah. Oh. Oh, where's their? Oh, wait, so I think maybe, did their PowerPoint not put in there? No, I.
Hey, John.
Hey.
Hey, Jack.
Give us a second, Jonathan. We're doing ZTC first, sorry.
Cool. All right. VTC first.
Extra slide. Where's Kim? Are you good?
We're all here on Zoom.
Yeah, so Jen and Nicole are going to take the lead on our presentation. And before they start, I just want to give them a quick shout out. These two are rock stars when it comes to ZTC, and you all should be very happy that they're taking the lead on this because our percentages just keep going up. So we're really excited. So thank you, Nicole and Jen, for all your hard work.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks.
Hopefully we can get the presentation to work because we have data to share. And if you could also share the screen since it's still on not share screen.
You?
And I have it up too if we need to.
I got it.
Fabulous, thank you. Okay, we just wanted to share some data with everybody. And so I'm not going to read through all of it, but you can see that we have an increase in our overall sections from last year. Non-credit did go down, but we did have a change in grant funding that was buying all textbooks for adult education. So we know exactly what happened on the non-credit courses, but it's great to see that not only are our sections up, but overall credit courses have increased as well. So kudos to everybody who are appropriately flagging courses. I think out of the 862 sections, I might have emailed half of those people during the summer. Nicole and I sent lots of email reminders about flagging your course. So if you have a ZTC course, please be sure to flag it early when we send out those reminders. Next slide, please, if possible.
It's coming. Oh.
Maybe the keyboard, the arrow on the keyboard might be easier. Since I'm a data person, I thought charts would be fun too. So kind of fun to see where we've been over the last few years. We've had a large increase, not only in sections, but students enrolling in the sections. Part of this is coming from multiple factors that are all included in the data here. In 2018-19, we did not have a good process to flag courses. So 8% of courses were flagged, but we were probably missing a lot of them. In the 19-20 year, that was the year that we were able to work with district IT. We had the box in my site and faculty started to flag, but we know a lot of people weren't doing it. So in 20 to 21, that was the year that Nicole and I started emailing every single instructor by going through the entire class schedule, course by course, clicking on book order and seeing if the professor had a book or not. And if they did not, we were sending an email that said, hey, you don't have a book order. Is your course ZTC? Or do you not just use a book? You know, trying to figure out what was happening. We did that again this summer, and I think we sent 400 emails around there. And now we're up to 37% of sections being marked zero textbook costs. We've had a lot of conversions in this time. So we had a lot of faculty who have converted from a publisher textbook to zero textbook costs. So that's in the data. We have faculty now flagging their courses appropriately. So that's in the data. And we also have faculty who never used a textbook in the first place, who were never doing book orders, who are now flagging their courses. So we have about 3 different elements coming together in this data where we see that big growth. But I think that the enrollments data really shows that students are choosing zero textbook cost courses, that if they have the option of 2 courses, 1 section with a textbook and 1 without, zero textbook costs, that they are, you know, choosing the one without the extra barrier. Next slide, please.
And Jen, I think just at the president breakfast yesterday, he did mention that doesn't show fall 2022. And so the data for fall is 41% of all sections are ZTC, and then half of all of our enrollments. So 50% now. So just to add that.
Perfect, thank you. And then this one, I wanted to include this one too. The data analysis has been really kind of weird during COVID times, but we do work with the Office of Research Planning and Accreditation about looking at success rates and retention rates, course cancellation rates, you know, fill rates, all the type of data that we are analyzing. And during COVID, things got a little weird. And yes, success rates have decreased since the peak in the 18-19 school year, but we do see that the courses that utilize zero textbook cost materials have a greater success rate than the non-ZTC courses. So in terms of student success, we're really seeing that providing students with access to learning materials on day 1 does come out in the data by having a higher success rate. So great work on that one. And we're hoping to do another big data dive this coming year. I think it's kind of been mentioned, getting closer to a return to normal. We'll see how the data looks in the coming year. Next slide, please.
Okay, I think this is me. So this summer, as Jen mentioned, we spent a lot of time mapping these pathways. We did this also last summer, and it's a very manual, long, complicated process. We're hoping that we can get a better system soon. But as Jen mentioned, we emailed all the faculty that we didn't see book orders for, made sure everything was appropriately flagged. And then we also checked the course catalog, and then also the class schedule, and then we come up with this document. So you can change the next slide, please. So we just wanted to give a shout out to all the programs that have degrees and certificates for fall 2022 that are complete zero textbook cost pathways. I won't read all these, and this is on our ZTC forward student facing web page, and then also our LibGuide, so we can share that. And again, these are always in flux. They're always moving. We had a couple that had to come down because one of the courses was not flagged appropriately, unfortunately. But the good news is when we did all this mapping, we found that I think there was like 13 programs, right, Jen, that had like 1 or 2 courses away. So we're really close on 13 more of these pathways. And we're happy if anyone is interested in just emailing us to find out where their program is at in terms of, the pathways and which courses they need in terms of ZTC or for, a couple that they need. We're happy to do that. So I think those are all those. And then is that it for that slide?
The
And
ZTC
really quick, we also, before Jen goes this, I also created these one-sheet documents. So some of the chairs and deans received these a couple weeks ago, and we worked with I should have mentioned, we worked with the counselors to also check our work. So I'm sure there can be human errors, but we then went and created these one sheets that the counselors received, and one column has all the courses that are in that degree or certificate, and then on the other column it has which courses are ZTC. So we tried to make it clear, and we're hoping that the programs can to send out to students and to share their ZTC path.
If you've heard that last year the governor had $150 million marked in the budget for zero textbook cost work. And after a year plus of hearing about this, finally during summer, we heard that the phase 1 grants would be going out very soon. And $150 million in total. Each college in theory should be receiving $1 million. However, phase 1 grants is just $20K. And so with this phase 1, we're supposed to be many colleges. Let me first back up and say, we are by far the leaders in the state when it comes to mapping out zero textbook cost pathways. The Academic Senate, Community College, ASCCC website, Nicole, maybe if you can find it, throw that link up that lists all the other pathways at other colleges, or I can do it as soon as I'm done talking, that we are beyond ahead of all the other colleges. Many colleges are nowhere near this, so they're taking the 20 grand just to start something. And so we're in this unique position of we've already developed a ZTC program, and so we don't need 20 grand to get going. We just need to keep doing what we're doing, but we would love new ideas from anybody who have an idea of something that we can do. We've explored purchasing class sets of textbooks in areas where it logistically makes sense, of course, on campus versus online. It doesn't make sense to buy books for an online class, but if it was a class on campus and it was a book that, I mean, there's so many other factors when we kind of get into the logistics, but we're just trying to brainstorm ways to be innovative, to come up with more degrees that can go ZTC. We have these 13 more that are on our list that are just 1 or 2 courses away. So we really want to work with the faculty in those areas to see what we can do to finalize those last few little, little items, and then we could have 13 more on this. So, Kim, did you have anything else on the grant work?
No, I think this is great.
Yeah.
And so
And-
we'll be getting the state's proposal, like they'll send out something on what that structure might be. So it's great to start gathering those ideas and sharing them with Jennifer and Nicole and Kim now, so that we could start to just have a basket of ideas ready to go. And then when the proposal comes out, we'll probably have to try and see what matches with what the proposal requirements are, to then put together our grant request.
Can they hear me when I speak? Can you
Yeah,
guys
we
hear
have
me?
a hand raised too, so can you hold 1 second? We'll go with
Sure.
Lindsay and then we'll go to.
Hi, I was just wondering, I know before the stipend for converting to a ZTC was 500. Is that the same still?
We have argued that it should go up to 550 because the stipend in the new contract was an increase on the hourly rate for stipends in general. And so it went up $50 last year. As the economist and with inflation, I would highly argue that we should increase this yet again. However, I'm told to work within a budget, so.
Yeah, I would say that if there's any way to use some money towards increasing the stipends, that would probably motivate more people to do it, because the amount of hours it takes is a lot. And also it could depend on the number of units the course is. The stipend could increase or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I mean, you're thinking about a 4-unit course compared to a 3-unit or even a 2-unit course. It's a lot of different material. So I love that idea. Thank you.
I will add it to our list, Lindsay.
Jack?
Hi, Jennifer and Nicole, great job. I was wondering, I heard you mention that you worked with my site, the My Site folks, to get the ZTC included. I was wondering, regardless of all the messaging the division sends to faculty, we are consistently finding that tons of people are marking classes ZTC in My Site, but failing to notify the bookstore, which is super frustrating. So if you could put, maybe, is it possible to coordinate and just put some prominent wording on that page in My Site where they select ZTC, just to remind people, go to Full A and make the book order? Maybe even linking that would be awesome. Can we do, is that a super chill thing we can do for compliance?
That would be lovely. I do like the idea of a reminder on that page. We do send out an email reminder telling people to do this. And also we are working with district IT to automate ZTC, so that way we don't have to do this again. And part of our reason for trying to automate this process is the slide that's been up here now for a moment, is that the chancellor's office is now requiring every college to provide instructional material data on every section. So it's really in everyone's best interest for us to get this automated or to find a way to make this work. We've been working with district IT. I know Kim's had tons of meetings about this. And we wanted to share it with the chairs and deans now, and even the senior admins, that this is coming down. And so we need to be aware that we're going to have to label courses in these 5 categories. Now, they went from D to Y because they've already said we might add in more categories. So they're leaving E and F and other letters available for the future, which is real exciting that we're going to have all these options. And you're going to find that there's overlap. This will be confusing. I will be honest with you from the get-go. Trying to get faculty to do this is going to be a fun challenge. But just know I'm not going to read everything because I'm sure you probably already read it. This is coming down. We are working on it. We're going to hopefully make it as painless as possible.
We're working with the bookstore on it, the bookstore manager, to hopefully make it just one click when you go into the bookstore, and then everything's automated. So we will see how that goes, but hopefully that will eliminate some of the challenges, and we'll do a lot of presentations on this so that we can be as clear as possible to faculty, letting them know. We have
Yes.
Julie and Deidre that have questions? I think?
XB12 will be a new thing that you will hear about.
Yeah, and I think the key thing that Jennifer mentioned is we're gonna try and automate this in the sense of creating a workflow where we're not having to track every individual instructor's section outside of, you know, creating a new process. So I know that Kim's been working really hard to try and see what processes already exist that is at that level. And can we include this information identification in that spot? Mark, if you can hold on a second, do we have Julie, Deidre, and then Mark?
Hi, this is Julie speaking. I had heard that for the D section, the low cost $40 or less, I heard that that option was available for some of our classes on campus, but not for everybody. And I was just wondering when that option might become available for us to tag it the way we do with the ZTC.
The low textbook cost flag is automatic. Every night, the bookstore sends a data file to district IT. And if your course has instructional material that's $40 or less for the new version, it will automatically be flagged.
Because I haven't seen that from my course. I think I've got textbooks, one textbook for a class that's like $39.
Send me an email and then I'll tag on the bookstore manager and we'll see what the issue is. It could just be some minor data glitch or it could be a huge problem. So let's just
All right, thank you so much, Jennifer and Nicole. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
It's always good to know those examples. Deidre?
Yeah, you guys are awesome. So my question is, so I know obviously curriculum is a multi-year process. Is it possible perhaps to streamline and get this happening faster if we can coordinate it with building the schedule each semester so that, you know, there's all these boxes that we click, and when we build out the schedule, can there be perhaps one where we select a letter option as well so that that way it can load sooner?
I think it's, right now we're investigating the book adoption process as the way for folks to identify. So if that one doesn't work, we'll definitely look at your suggestion and see if there's something else we can do.
Yeah, and Deidre, I love that, I love your suggestions. Also, this XB12 data element, it's already running. So this has its own timeline. Colleges have to do a hard implementation fall of 23. Right now, colleges are required, we're in kind of a soft launch phase. The goal for us is that if we can get the bookstore to assist with this process and have trainings for the faculty, the goal is for us to do a soft launch for this spring coming up. And so if that's the case, then we will make sure that faculty are all trained and aware of how to do this. But we're working really hard behind the scenes to make this as easy for all the faculty to do and for the senior admins not to kill me. Thank you, Tram.
Yeah. Thank you, CTC team.
Thank you.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah, I just had a question. So when we're reviewing our curriculum, one of the things that we have to identify is a textbook for a course, and yet we're trying to move away, and there's a mandate to move away from using textbook.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that because there's it's instructor by instructor, but we have courses that none of the instructors for the course are using a textbook. Is that, I think that's an ed code mandate that we have to identify. Is that something we need to look at? Well, from the state level, they need to kind of give us the option of not identifying a textbook if we're not using it. Like, I mean, what's the purpose of going through and identifying a textbook that we're used when we don't use it?
Yeah.
It's kind of a myth that we have on your course outline of record. It's a recommended material. I changed every single economics course outline of record to have an OER and a publisher textbook. So you have the ability to put in open educational resources on your course outline of record.
Instead of a textbook.
Correct.
Yeah, well, I have a textbook. It's open. It's an open educational resource. It's a free textbook that is licensed in a way that it is free to everybody. So it's still a textbook. Students don't have to pay for it.
So I hear your question, Mark. What we'll do is I'll work with Michelle and Kim, and we'll follow up and see if that category has flexibility. I agree with you. Sometimes our policies don't catch up to innovations. So we'll double check that and make sure that does it require a text, or is it broader now as like a category of instructional materials, you know, to kind of align with that data element.
Tram, it's Kim. Oh,
Good.
Who was that?
Kim
Yeah.
Stankovich.
Yeah.
I think I talked over Nicole.
It's okay.
I was just gonna say, like, maybe if 3 years ago now, time is a blur with COVID, but it was pre-COVID. I was at a curriculum institute and we were actually debating this issue a long time ago about that exact screen. And at that time, I remember learning that you can put an OER in there for your textbook. But I saw Amy just pop up in the chat that it's required for articulation. But I know it's been allowed for a long time. So maybe when you do those screens, you don't have to put in a link, but even though the book is free, you still have an author, typically a year, typically a title, typically. So I would encourage faculty to put in their OERs. And then I think that's a good idea to have a conversation about it and figure out how we could include OER, because I think we should be able to. We were able to years ago.
And I'll just second what Kim's saying. That's absolutely correct. So you can definitely put in the OER as your text. And to second what Amy's saying, the reason even though faculty aren't using an actual textbook, we do need to have that included because it's part of articulation for both the CSUs and UCs.
So the recommendation is that you would put in OER. And if you're not using a textbook, you're just putting OER.
No, you're putting in whatever OER
textbook.
Typically, there are the OER textbooks and stuff that people are putting in. You have to put in something like that for transfer.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to show that, like, this is the OpenStax and I'm blurred, so you probably can't see it, but, oops, now my video's off. But this is the actual sociology, like, OpenStax textbook. It's a textbook. So you can order a low cost print one, but this is the ebook and it's a full, like, textbook with publisher or, and like a publisher and everything. So just so it's like.
I think the question is, if you're not using a textbook and you're using other materials, then is there an option to put some other type of materials down? I think is the question.
I believe that would interfere with transfer.
So I think this is something we're gonna have to investigate, and definitely we can bring forward either through Senate to the state Senate if we're finding that this is a policy issue that's gonna stifle innovation. And then same thing for myself. We're part of all the VPIs are a part of an association as well. And so I could bring it up that way. So let us investigate it. And if it's not flexible, it's definitely something we need to bring to the attention.
Because there's quite a few areas that teach activity or performance-based courses that don't really have, it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and it's, we have to, I think as we want to innovate, we don't want to have policies that are counterproductive. Given the concern that Michelle and Kim have brought up with regards to transfer, we still have to have that in mind. So it's going to be multiple conversations if we're needing to change that policy.
And
Allison?
something to consider, what's on your course outline of record, you don't have to teach with that particular book. That's not like
what I was gonna say.
a contract. It's not a contract that you have to use that. It is a possible option to use. Instructors have the academic freedom to pick the learning materials that best suit their students.
Yes, that is correct. It's a representative of material that you could use. Allison?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Thanks, Jen. But you're putting in a textbook or material or an online, an OER that is appropriate for the course so that, and a lot of people put multiple ones in there so that faculty see that and they choose what they want. So you don't have to use what you put in there, but everyone should be putting appropriate material in there in the core, but you don't have to use it. So yeah, that's all I was going to say.
All right, if you have any questions, just email us. We took way more time than we were supposed to, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think now we're up for. Sorry. It's very tricky. You have to get the mouse onto the slide before you can use a clicker. So now we're going to learning pathways.
We are
Maybe since Jonathan and I get to stretch, everyone else does.
Yeah. Do you want to stand up and stretch?
Sitting behind.
Feel good.
Yeah, bring chair yoga.
Yeah.
Ready?
Right after the paddleboard one.
Oh, right after paddleboard.
I just read the dress like it's
Beautiful. Okay. So just a quick thank you to the chairs who received the email from Elizabeth Weiss, one of our adjunct, who she's a rare breed. She had an IT career and then she's a counselor. So it's really an incredible hybrid there. And so she's loving working on the PPM, the program mapper. That's the sample schedule. So thank you for those of you that provided us updated information. So your sample schedule is up on the program mapper. And then the next phase that we've talked about with guided pathways, learning pathways, is the program mapper shows your programs if a student was going full-time. We know so many of our students are not privileged to go full-time. We wish they were, but they're not in that position. So can we offer our program part-time? So if you have an interest in showing your program and how a student would approach it at a part-time schedule, then you'll get that department chair wide email and please submit. And if that's something you're not, ready to do, that's okay. But if it's something you are, let us know and we'll get it posted on PPM. And then I don't know, Trish, if you can, or Tram, if you can go to the website. Gotta get the mouse down. Sorry. So if you want to scroll
Can you
down.
see the share? The folks on the Zoom, can you see the website?
No.
Also super quick, welcome to all the new chairs. I know it's maybe like a deer in the headlights moment for some of you. If this is your first time. I know it was like that for me. I'm Jonathan Luque, if you don't know me. I'm co-chair of the math department. I'm also co-chair of Student Success Coordinating Council with Penny. And so that's why we're presenting about guided pathways. So for those of you who are new, just a quick welcome. And are we sharing now the college website?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so if you aren't aware, if you go to the programs tab of the college website, it takes you to our learning pathways page. And if we scroll down just a little bit, we have this nice big red button here. Find your learning pathway using Program Mapper. So this is what we're referring to. If you're a new chair, you might not know so much about Program Mapper. It's a great tool for displaying sample schedules and helping students explore the programs that we have available at Saddleback. And so, like Penny was saying, we have sample schedules that were built between the help of past chairs or current chairs, if you're still a chair, and counseling liaisons. We're hoping to be able to also include sample schedules because, like President Stern was saying yesterday during his opening session, a large percentage of our students are part-time students. And so this will help us out a little bit when it comes to communicating with those students about their options and what traversing that pathway might look like if they were to have a part-time sample schedule. It doesn't assume that they're taking 15 or 16 units every semester.
So again, you'll get an email from Elizabeth, and if that's something you can do, that would be greatly appreciated. And we'll quickly get it up onto the site. This site is used quite frequently by our outreach team. They go out to various schools and various community groups to kind of say, this is the type of program that Saddleback offers. These are the various programs, and a student can kind of look at it and get a sense of how long it might take. There's lots of disclaimers that say, do talk to a counselor because there could be a reason why it wouldn't take as long. Perhaps they have credit from another college or AP units or credit or something in that matter. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, unless there was a question about PPM. You will be receiving an email. So you got the summer one. And again, thank you to everyone that updated their program mapper. And we kind of nudged you if there was a change. We noticed a change in your program. We nudged you a little bit too to say, you know, probably want to take this down. Great. Sorry, next one.
Terrific.
Sure. So at point of CC apply, at point of application, a student goes on, they put in their information, and one of the options they have is to pick one of their pathways. This is an uninformed pathway. By no means do we think they pick health and wellness and they're absolutely staying in it forever. So it's not a terminal decision in any way, shape, or form. But based on the students making the decision at CC apply, plus ongoing conversations with counseling, we've landed at about 13,333 students that have picked a pathway. When you break that number up, this is where our 7 learning pathways where students tend to land. You can see we have some that, you know, a lot of students are initially attracted to. So this is really a combination of both an uninformed and an informed. We haven't disaggregated which one is legit, like someone said, I am health and wellness. So, but this what I would say, what I think is a bit impressive is that this is with little to no marketing yet on learning pathways, right? At point of CC apply. It's just a question on the application. And so we haven't begun as a college, a full court press on talking a lot about the learning pathways. So 13,000 students found it. You'll also notice that, you know, well, you can see, and you know where, hopefully by now, new chairs, we are here anytime, literally for you to answer any of these questions. But you'll see where kind of some of this, where the students are gravitating to right now. So I'll be quiet. I'll turn it over to my colleague here.
Thank you. All right. Last year was the first year for a lot of different things. We launched Program Mapper, like Penny was presenting. We also launched our first effort at student success teams. We call them completion teams. This is a conversation that has been taking place for a number of years now. I think the first agenda that I saw that involved completion teams for our Learning Pathways work group was back in December 2019. So this has been sort of a long time coming in. It's evolved over time in terms of the sort of function that we wanted to be able to serve for our students. But our completion teams were, for each of our 7 pathways, they were facilitating engagement activities for students in their learning pathway. On the next slide, once we get there, we have some pictures to show off about those. They went through professional development with the help of a consultant, Al Solano, that resulted in a community of practice where our completion team leads would get together and we talk about the challenges we were facing with trying to be able to move this towards something that was more than just a pilot, something that was going to be really beneficial to our students. They started promoting and maintaining these Canvas shells that we called Guides to Pathway Success, so we abbreviate GPS, with the goal of having a platform for being able to communicate with students, sharing opportunities, helping clarify opportunities that students could have to light their fire. Because a big part of what we're trying to do within the completion teams is getting students to have that moment where they recognize, this is the glue that's going to keep me here at Saddleback. This is the thing that's going to inspire me towards the next step, towards completing this certificate, this degree, this transfer goal, this career goal. And we also, like I said, launched Program Mapper with our sample schedules. So that was last year. These are just a couple of pictures from some of the events that were held last year. We had events in the quad. The Arts in the Quad event was very well attended. Had representation from multiple divisions, many programs. It was a wonderful opportunity our arts design and entertainment pathway had to offer. We also had an event for our business and economics pathway, social sciences and education. Our science, engineering, and pre-med pathway held a symposium. It was sort of an informal opportunity for students to just share their knowledge and passion of what they've learned in some of their capstone courses. Lots and lots of events took place last year, and it was building this capacity of collaboration and student engagement and socialization and finding a home within Saddleback, a cohort of students that had similar interests. So moving into this year, we're transitioning a little bit and we're really leveraging the strengths of the completion teams from last year, which was this sort of community building. and sort of retooling and renaming them into connection teams. So the goal here is really to emphasize that connection. Again, that light, the fire, that spark, that how do we help students find that thing that they need in order to feel connected to the college? And so we are going to continue to seek broad participation from faculty across programs in each learning pathway. I highly recommend that at some point within department meetings or division meetings, you discuss, participation within learning pathways, within connection teams. I think it'd be great to have nice broad representation from across many, many programs as we're trying to build and discover what it is that we can offer to our students, what we can share to our students about opportunities that are available at Saddleback and beyond. And also, we're going to be working on continuing to update our guide to pathway success, that Canvas guide, to be able to better communicate to students the kind of information we would like them to be able to see that we can help shepherd them towards. These are in sort of mixed order, our connection team leads for this coming semester, so fall 2022. You can just take a quick look, you probably know some of these faces. I've abbreviated the learning pathway, so AD&E's Arts, Design and Entertainment, Applied and Advanced Technologies, Business and Economics, Literature and Languages, Social Sciences and Education, Science, Engineering, and Pre-Med. I'm probably missing one. I didn't count, but pretty close there. We actually have 2 slides of this. And Health and Wellness, H&W, there it is. So of course, if you ever have any questions about a particular connection team, you're welcome to reach out to those individuals. And if you ever need any additional information or if you forget something, if you need to know contact, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to help direct traffic. My email is jluque@saddleback.edu. So please feel free to email me. Lastly, we'd like to be able to continue the conversation and bring back something that we were doing pre-pandemic, which were these college-wide lunch and learns. And so this was a great opportunity to engage faculty, staff, students, administration, our campus community in conversations around guided pathways and now learning pathways. And so we're going to try to organize one for sometime in late October. The goal is to have it as a hybrid opportunity where we are in SSC 212, where we used to hold these sorts of lunch and learns, but also having a Zoom presence. We're going to be working on organizing this, so please look out for an invitation relatively soon. All right, I think that's it. Any questions at all? That's like the super brief, fast version.
Any questions?
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Next, we have Manny from Office of Instruction to kind of go over some enrollment numbers and some scheduling data that we're looking at expanding on so that we can help inform you all in building the schedule better.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So 2 things like Trav said, gonna share a couple of things, some fall enrollment numbers as of today or as of yesterday, which is 1 week before the term starts. And the second is a couple of new things that we're looking at. So first slide that we have out here is some of the key metrics that we usually have out there. The first 3 that you see here is the current enrollment. As you can see, it's about 5.4% below from the prior fall. And then I think everybody's pretty familiar with what happened to the pandemic. That's why you see the downward trend. And then as you look at the weekly student hours, it's down similarly 4.63%. And then when you look at the FDEF or the full-time equivalent faculty, it's coming out the same way. So which means we're probably sizing it the same way as the enrollments are coming in.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on this slide? Can you go to the next one?
Yep.
Or, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so
Too fast. Sorry.
on this one, so this one won't necessarily follow the trends that you saw earlier. The first one is the productivity. As you can see, productivity is actually a measure of our weekly student contact hours divided by our full-time equivalent faculty. So we're flat compared to last year, fall of 2020, which is also the same as fall 2019 and fall 2018 out there. So same thing. Our FTEF has sized accordingly together with our weekly student contact hours. That's why we're seeing that flat. I'm not including fall 2020 since it was a pandemic year, so there were like different factors impacting those numbers. For the full-time equivalent students, again, we did see that decline in fall 2020, but it has pretty much stayed steady through fall 2021 and fall of 2022. And then for the fill rate, we are still like in the 60%. Looks like over the last 5 years, it's consistently in the 60%. I'm still like probably doing a little bit more deep dive on what is impacting, like what are the different reasons why we are like lower or higher in terms of fill rate. So any questions on this slide? Yes, John.
The fill rates and stuff are for courses that are full-term starts, or is that the entire term?
This is the entire one, yes. So that's true. So I guess there's a different mix. The mix of our like full-term starts as well as our first 8 weeks is typically higher. When I look at it, it's more like it's closer to the high 60s, low 70s. Anything that's a second-term start is typically dragging it down. So it could possibly be a mix of like our first and 8 week term starts out there. But thanks, John. Okay, so I'm gonna share a couple of like different mixes that we see out here. You'll see 2 tables. The first one is based on the section count, and then the one below is based on the enrollment count. We're using fall 2019 as a reference point because this was how it was pre-pandemic, and then we're using fall 22 as where we are today. So one thing that you will see on the top table out there is in fall 2019, out of the 21 and 98 sections that we had, 554 were fully online, or as you can see on the right, it was 25% of our sections out there. Moving to fall 2022, our fully online section has jumped up to 1134, which is now 54% of our section. So this is where we're seeing the trend after the pandemic, where now we are at the fully online, whether it stays here or not. I think that's something that we will probably be finding out over the next several terms. So bottom line here is we basically have transitioned from in-person to fully online. Whether we hold that same ratio, it's something that I guess it's still up for debate. We don't really have a clear direction on where that's going. One thing I do want to show though is if you look at the enrollments, even though I'll focus on the fully online and then the fall 22 number out there. So even though our sections for fully online is 54% of the sections, our actual enrollments is at 64%. So what that is really telling us today right now is our students are still gravitating to the fully online instead of the in-person / hybrid.
Any questions on that? I think we're sharing this just to kind of give us a data point to start to track. We didn't quite look at ourselves in this way prior, and I think this is something that we'll have to pay attention to as we continue to build our schedules to be dynamic. That's pretty much what we're learning. Circumstances change, the environment around us changes. We're having to continuously be dynamic to be able to address it.
Oh, okay, and then this was just like another way to look at it. So this is our enrollment trends. We usually see our enrollment trends by course or by department. This is using the same data, but now we're looking at the online trends out there. So as you can see, similar to what we saw on the previous slide, overall enrollment trend is down 10% compared to like fall of 2019. But the mix by the different modalities is like very, very varied depending on like where we are. So as you can see, when fully online, it's up 134%. What we're seeing here, these numbers are as of yesterday. So anything in the orange is the full enrollment trend as of fall 2019 or 3 years ago. Anything in the blue is as of today, as of yesterday. So fully online is up 134%. In person is down 65%, and the hybrid, which is actually really a small piece right now, which is 6% of our current mix, is up significantly on that one.
Because we didn't have much hybrid to begin with. So that's where you see the bigger growth. So I think these are, as we look at our schedule and building our schedule, things that we're having to consider, not just course, time, and day. We're having to now add the layer of modality. So we're looking at morning, afternoon, evening, fully online, hybrid. So those are now additional layers that we'll have to kind of slice and analyze the enrollments in.
I have a quick question about hybrid. When we're talking about hybrid, are we talking about hybrid online / Zoom and also online / on campus, like one day on campus, the rest of the hours online? Is it everything or is it just one or the other?
Hybrid, when we say hybrid, it's you have one day on campus and one day off online.
Okay, and that's not including where we might have half of the hours on.
No, so the classes that we have that are streaming, when we schedule them, we actually pair them up. So it's my understanding, we're scheduling a port, like a ticket, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, in person, and then we're doing like a second ticket that's online, and they're kind of paired together.
But I meant some of the classes that are 100% Zoom. We have some classes that are all Zoom, all stream. And then we have some that are streaming on just one day, one class day.
Yeah.
And the rest is online.
We're seeing that those numbers are not doing very well. And they're kind of in the same category as in person because they fix the student to a time and day. So in working across all the areas, we're hoping to revisit that. There are only in certain really unique spaces where that's working well. And so we're gonna do a little bigger dive into that and start to talk to folks individually in your areas, because it's a very unique spot to be constrained by a time and day and for that student group to want to be online. It's a very unique group. And we're seeing that across the campus, it is not doing well. But there are very small pockets where it might be successful, and we're gonna probably focus on just those, and then probably have to let go on the other ones, because students who fix time and day, they either want to be here in person, or they're just gonna be all online completely.
Okay, thank you. That answers the question. Thank you.
Yeah. Jonathan?
So I noticed that there's a spike in enrollment for 2019, right around 65 days out, whereas now it's around 70 days out from the start of the semester. Are those corresponding to a similar event, just that they're now a week apart?
Yes, so I think this is like what happened here is we have registration appointments. And what happened here in this one is every time we see a spike about 30 days ahead of the start of the fall of the registration, this is typically when the emeritus starts. Enrollments happening. So what happened this fall compared to last fall is it started a week later. So that's why we see that lag, and then it starts following it again.
Our emeritus come in full force when they get to register. Yeah. Good. Oh. I've had my remotes that don't rely on having to sit on the power. These are just a couple of things I wanted Manny to just give you a preview of. It is not fully baked yet, but it is some data elements that we're going to start to pay attention to. As you all have been super cognizant of the enrollments as we start during the beginning of priority registration, you've also been making changes as we go along. And so we've started to track changes. So go ahead, Manny.
Yeah, so like when Pam talked to me about this build to run schedule, so one thing that I'm learning as I'm working through this with Pam and all of you is any change in schedule means an impact on resources pretty much. And the most important resource that is impacted pretty much are you guys, like faculty who teach it, because anything that changes means everything is shifted around, taken away, or added. So that's why we have like 3 different changes that we have: convert, add, and cancel. It's pretty much we're talking about like when it comes to resource requirements, we're either convert, we're either reallocating resources because we're changing day, time, or like periods. We're adding resources if we don't have any full-time, if we don't have any proposed sections, that means it's a matter of like looking for the right faculty as well as like other resources like the rooms. And then canceling is the allocation of resources. So these 3 different kinds of changes impacts everyone, and most importantly, you guys. So that's why we wanted to start tracking this. So this is an update as of fall, as of 8/8/2022. Come spring, we're going to do this more at the start of the registration when we're changing sections, because the earlier we have changes, the better the opportunity is for the students to find another course. The later we do it, closer to the term start, then their probability of getting another course to replace what they were dropped from decreases. So that's something that we will start doing in 2023 by doing it more like a time-phased analysis as we start getting through closer to the term start.
So this is just and you look at the column build, that's kind of where we start once we open up the schedule and students can see it. That's our build schedule. And you'll see that there's a lot of movement that happens. We always knew that there was movement, so it's not new that we have movement, but we've never looked at what those movements were and the timing of them. So that's something that we're wanting to investigate and kind of keep an eye on to see if that impacts any of our enrollments. The other is, again, this is not fully baked, and Manny's working on it, is I asked Manny to look at our schedule across multiple years and see how much of our schedule that we build always runs, no matter what semester, it always runs. And so if we're calling that the base schedule, meaning that when we look back 3, 4, 5 years, that schedule would always run. And then the question is, what's the amount of schedule that's above that? And then perhaps we can focus on that as kind of our attention area, and instead of like trying to rebuild the whole schedule every time. So, Manny, you want to just show a little bit about?
Yeah, so what you will see here is this is at the course level details. So you will see on the top left, like, we enter a course and then it will populate the data into this table. And I would like to call this more right now at the discovery phase, because as I'm starting to like look in like different high volume sections or high volume courses out there, I am starting to see trends, whether it be fall, spring, summer, if there's classes, and then like what the overall year looks like. So we have like 7 years out here. And then the last column out there is like our current year. So if we see fall, that's pretty much almost fixed today because we pretty much have sections built. If you look at spring, which is the second set of data that out here, this is currently being built, I think almost finalized within the next 2-3 weeks before we start auditing that one, and then the summer. So what I'm looking at over here is I have little trend lines that you see on the 4th column. So as I'm starting to look at some of the courses, we're learning more like, is a course like trending down, trending up, then try to discover some more, ask questions like, is this really what's happening? If we start seeing like a sudden decrease or sudden increase, then that's when like I would start like my actual discovery phase. What happened here? Is the course being discontinued and is it being replaced or vice versa? So there's a lot of different things that I'm still learning from this perspective. But from a base section, the last line for each on each and every term is like what I'm really focused on right now. So the last line right now is basically what we want to establish, because this is our supply, to ensure that the enrollment on the top line is the right term.
There's
satisfied.
enough spaces for
If there's
the,
enough spaces for
for the students that are coming in. So if you figure out, if we're seeing that we're consistently able to fill 8 sections, 10 sections, we want to make sure that we have at least those sections on. And then the question is, do we need to build more above that if the trend is increasing? Or if we're seeing a trend decreasing, do we need to anticipate potential needing to cancel? So, or only adding 1 as opposed to adding 3, something like that. Again, this is just exploratory right now. And so I just wanted to present this because I want to put it out there to you all. If you have ideas on other things that you would like to know about as you're building, let your deans know. They can share it with us in Office of Instruction so that we can look at other ways of looking at our data. We're really trying, our thought is the previous data sets that we had were mostly historical. And they're very difficult to use to anticipate and determine what we need to build now. And so we're trying to find other ways of gathering data and in a way where we can actually model it out and anticipate the movement. And so all brains, all thoughts are good thoughts. And we just need that partnership with you. Manny and I in a room, along with the deans, sometimes we catch it all and sometimes we don't. So if you think of any other places we can think of, let us know and we'll start investigating it. Alana's got a question. Okay, Alana?
Thank you. First, I asked in chat whether you could add wait lists cleaned of duplicate students and cleaned up of students who are really enrolled in one section of English 1A and then hanging out on the wait list for another. And the second thing is, it would be very helpful to have point-to-point enrollment during registration available somewhere. So for example, with all of the honors courses, I check their enrollments the first day of priority registration and then about every other day since then, so that I know, okay, this thing isn't filling. Is it filling kind of the same way it did last year and the year before? Does it always add late or something like that, so that we could kind of know whether to worry about things?
Yeah. So we have the waitlist information. And so that's actually actual live data so that you can see if we should add or not. So Manny uses that with the deans to determine whether we need to add classes. With regards to your other point, we do have a report. It's just the challenge is that we have to pair it up with the days to when classes start. As opposed to, I think a lot of our reports are based on like days in the registration cycle. And so it provides different lenses to it. And so we're looking at both of those right now. But we do have that information. So I think maybe we might need to do a share out if you don't have that.
I don't have that.
Talk about the enrollment management tool.
Yeah, so I do have I'm working with the research and planning department with the enrollment planning tool, because what they do is the individual terms. Yeah. So I show them a way where we overlap multiple terms. So just hopefully it will show an overlap in terms of is it trending, is it lagging, is it ahead, and give us a better idea.
Yeah.
How to do that.
Alana, the enrollment management tool has exactly that, what you're asking about, so you can look year over year.
I think they came and did a presentation a while back, so maybe we just need to get the
if you just send
I can only see overall Saddleback year by year.
Okay.
I can't trace, for example, how COM 1H is doing this year versus how it did last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll figure out how to bring that information and do a training. Yep. Okay. So I have 15 minutes left and thanks,
that's it.
Manny.
Thank you.
And so I want to make sure that I share with you where we're at. We are, as you all know, I think, or some have heard, I want to make sure that we're upfront with the process that we're going through. the deans and I did start talking this summer at our annual retreat. We do usually do one at the end of the year. And knowing that we were going to have a dean vacancy, we did have some conversation. We then ended up sharing the results of our conversation with the president and asked him if we could start pulling in faculty as part of that discussion. So we did engage with the faculty senate leadership this last week to just start the discussion. And what we want to share with you today is just some overarching things that we've all come to acknowledge. So the first is, you know, a lot of times folks are asking why now? Why are we looking at this? And so the first thing is timing. We actually are at a moment in time with the last 2 years of learning and kind of the advancement that we've had in how we work and how we think about providing educational experiences for students. So we want to take this opportunity and in this moment in time to think about what we would need going forward now that we're out of crisis. The other is that it's a normal part of our process. Whenever we have a vacancy, we go through a process of evaluating that position and determining how we want to proceed with it. Are there tweaks that we want to make and any new things that we want to potentially address that might not have existed when that position was originally identified. The other is that we also have to start planning for the fact that we are going to be we're going to have a site at ATEP in Tustin in 2 years. So we need to figure out how to make sure we support that area administratively. A couple other things that are really hitting us hard, that decline in the traditional age group that Elliot had shared yesterday. It's real and it's pretty prevalent in our area because of the demographics that we have living here and the cost of living. The other is legislative changes that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years. AB 1705, which is forcing us to fully implement 705, has done a big change to our college, and for really good reasons. Our students are much more successful with this change, and we're seeing more students complete. So it's been for good, but it does create permanent declines in enrollments for us. Like, those are not trends. They are permanent declines because the curriculum has changed and the levels of offering have changed. The other legislations that we're anticipating impacting us with enrollments is ethnic studies, the single transfer GE pattern, and then common course numbering. All of these are going to impact students' flow and the demand for certain classes. And so recognizing all of those things, we're feeling like we need to figure out how we can structure ourselves to do better for our students, how we can then also embed in the focus on student supports and engagement. So the work that we're doing in Pathways, as well as in our different program activities. And then lastly, this expectation. The new group of students that are coming to us, there's a different expectation. The expectation is that we provide them with a comprehensive student experience. And it's also an expectation on us, ourselves, not just because the students are saying it. We've recognized that over the years, our traditional educational model at the community colleges were built on that, 4-year college model that was for students who came in from families that had experiences in higher ed. Well, community colleges were never built for that per se, but we use that model. And so that model actually doesn't really help to put in structures to support students along the way because it wasn't necessarily intended to. So we've been doing what we were built for, but what we've learned over the years is that we actually need to be built differently so that we can have those structures of supports in place as students are going through. So all of those things are kind of why now? Are we looking at our instructional branch and thinking about what can we do different? So these are our current program groupings. We have them in the structures of divisions, and we also have them in the structures of pathways. And so some of the challenges that we've talked about over the last I think, years, and not necessarily explicitly, but people have said it's really difficult to manage these two grouping structures. And so the question is, can we take this opportunity to maybe do something that might combine them? So that's just a question to put it out there. The other thing is that when you think about our division structure, we also have within our division structure, not just programs that lead to degrees and certificates, we also have structures that are really support. So for example, in economic workforce development, we have a function that helps to support the college build out economic workforce development partnerships and programming. It's not a program that leads to a degree and certificate itself, but it's a function within our area. You'll also notice that extended learning, it has some functions, and then it also acts as an on-ramp and an off-ramp for our credit program. So it's not, it's kind of different. And then we have athletics, again, supporting the whole college with regards to extracurricular activities for our students in athletics, and then online ed. So those 4 areas provide support or function slightly different than our program areas. And so you'll see the division structure. When we talk about the pathways, we kind of strip those pieces out, right? And you're really just left with pathways that are connected to programs that lead to degrees and certificates. And so the question is, what can we do to try and see if we can address some of the needs that we're seeing and taking this opportunity? Sorry. Okay. So as we go into this conversation, first off, the deans and I are very committed to bringing in input and discussion with the campus, especially the instructional branch, because this is going to impact us as a whole. We want to make sure that we first and foremost commit to building a structure that supports our students and their experience. We want to continue to support the liberal arts educational experience for students here. We feel that that's a big part of us and our culture. We want to build upon existing program synergies. So this is not about pulling folks off if it doesn't make sense. It's about where can we make more sense. And then the other is we want to make sure that we're not displacing any folks from permanent roles. So that's not on the table at all. And then the last one is we want to make sure that we provide appropriate supports to both facilitate the change and then to implement the change. So it's actually kind of a big conversation that we're getting into, but we want to make sure that you all knew that we were committed to these things. And then these are some guiding principles that the dean team and I had come up with. So we want to make sure that we innovate and create organizational structures that transform lives of students and offering high quality career building, life enriching education. We're looking at building this experience that's similar to like a small private college. It's intimate, it's customized, it's personal, that kind of experience. Initially, we started talking, we thought it was a university experience, but that's not quite the experience we want. It's like that small private school kind of experience is what we really want. We want to, another guiding principle is we want to create something that we could do cross and multidisciplinary experiences with everyone on campus. We want to better meet the community's needs that we serve. We want to facilitate opportunities for experiential learning. So if we put folks that are like-minded together and we're able to build better partnerships because we have them all in the same place, we can perhaps do better experiential learning opportunities, increase access to students for prior learning, same thing. There are certain programs that lend well to that. And so can we kind of add that layer there as well? And then we want to make sure that we have on-ramps for students who might be discovering still. So these are things that we want to guide our design work in the next couple months. And then last, that formalizing the student contact points for contextualized learning. It's not just contextualized learning, but it's just really knowing where that student enters into that particular trajectory and how could we then put our arms around them. Athletics does a really great job. Like, all the athletes come in, we know who they are. We're able to put our arms around them and really support them. Unfortunately, we don't have that same type of formalized contact point. And so the question is, can we build something, a structure that would enable us to do that better for our general student population? So these are some, commitments, guiding principles that we want to have and that we have in place in order to start this conversation. And really the next steps are, I'm gonna be working with the dean team to figure out what's the best way for us to have this discussion through the deans and chairs structure potentially, or the division structure. What we're not fully fleshed out yet is that we want to make sure that we include all the folks that want to participate. And again, before I end this is really to formalize our thinking and also to provide a recommendation to the president on how to proceed with the vacancies that we have. And also really looking at catapulting us as an institution, which, instruction is the main core, into the future. So questions, I'm sure folks will have. Maybe you want to know why counseling wasn't on here. Amy, so counseling's not on here because this is the instructional branch. What we are hoping to do, Amy, is that we're hoping to then build in the student supports. I think counseling is being addressed on the student services side. Pete's got his hand up. Pete?
Hi, thanks.
Hi, Pete.
I've been hearing what I can only call a rumor, but I've heard it just several times now. And instead of letting it continue to metastasize, I thought I'd just bring it up. Let us address it directly. The rumor I'm hearing is that SBS and the LA divisions are going to be combined. And that this is something like a fait accompli. Is there any truth to this?
I think there's a lot of possibilities out there. So it is something that we might be looking into.
Okay, I mean, I sort of see it as a measure of our operational culture that such an important proposal is the subject of rumors, and at least the things I've seen has not been a part of our more public, though internal, not super public conversations about this. If this is a proposal that's on the table, I would ask that it be made sort of explicit so that we can have an honest conversation about it, considering the costs and benefits. And we can't do that if the proposal isn't even presented to us. We can't have a conversation about it because we don't know what the proposal is. We don't know the why. So if this is something that is on the table, I would beg that we make that clear and that we talk about it publicly within the institution.
Sure.
Can I just one last thing? I'm sorry. One last thing. I just want this is not the first time I've had experiences like this. We're an institution of higher education where truth, where authenticity, where honesty are central to our very existence. And I think these things must be central to our operational culture. And I'm genuinely concerned that they are not consistently part of our operational culture. I could be wrong about that, right? I'm not trying to accuse anyone, but gosh, things keep happening that make me question whether our operational culture lives up to our institutional values. And I don't know what to do or how to move forward, except to kind of present this as a challenge for us in this space among our college leaders, and see if we can collectively come up with a way to maybe, if others agree that there's an issue, to do better. I believe we can do better. I really do. I think the people in this room can do better.
I'm really glad that you believe that, Pete, because I strongly want to live it. Part of our conversation today is sharing this information with a bigger group of folks so that you know that we've had conversations. We're not hiding anything, that we've had conversations. We've had a discussion within our own team. And yes, we have an idea, but it's not something that's fully baked. We're not necessarily in that space to present. And then we had a conversation with our Senate leadership, again, just to gather information and make sure that our guiding principles were solid. And so I feel like we're still working through. As part of that process, my understanding is that we're going to have another conversation with the leadership. And then the question is to bring it back to this bigger group to really then potentially at that point, we might have something to share that we would be fleshing out. But I agree with you. If we have something that's really solid and we really want to move forward with, and we feel, like we're all cohesive, we want to put it out, right? But I don't know that we're there yet. So I think it would be a little bit premature to have that presented in that way. So it is a process, it evolves. And so I think part of this challenge is I'm wanting to live that culture. And part of living that culture is really, this is not a normal space for us to have discussions. And we're opening up an opportunity to do that as I start to build a recommendation for the to the president. So it is genuine. So I hope you feel that way.
Tram, could you explain, like, I know you said that you have your team and then you spoke with the academic senate. I know you did that last week, but is there a way for us to know who is talking about these things? Because I think a lot of us would like to be involved in the conversation.
So the discussion was with the dean team. So all the deans and myself. So we talked about our area and what we would like to see. And that's just our conversation. We recognized it was one lens. So then what we did was we had another conversation with the president that opened up the discussion of bringing in faculty leadership. So that is your Senate executive. That is the body that represents the faculty on our campus. And so we went there. At the end of that conversation, we all felt that it needed to go into a broader group of folks. And that's where I'm bringing it here. So it's not, nothing is fully baked. We are just starting the conversation. My hope is that we would engage in this. And again, I'm not 100% sure what's the best way to gather information. You recognize that our deans and chairs setting is usually only deans and chairs. It does not involve classified staff, for example, in that conversation. And so we may want to have a different type of structure for this discussion. The deans and I just need to think about what's the best way to engage folks so that folks feel like they can participate and are able to provide input.
So when we met in June, when Kevin was still here, and we wanted to have discussions because we knew there were going to be different things that came up that we are uncertain of. And when we were having discussions, there's a myriad of different options in terms of what the structure of our college could look like. But the thing that became most important to us were figuring out what our values and goals are, because as I shared last week, sometimes I get in a fearful spot, and instead of thinking what is good, I assume everything's going to be bad. And so we tried to figure out what those values and goals are, and that's what Tram shared. And then there's lots of different options in terms of what the structure could potentially look like. And we didn't feel good enough to be in a place without talking with faculty. We really strongly desired for this to be a conversation and for us to be able to work collaboratively together. And that's when Academic Senate came in, because historically, I've been on the other side where reorgs have happened when you're a part-timer or a full-timer and it doesn't feel good and you're not part of that. And I didn't want to recreate that wheel. I don't want to be part of that. So the strongest desire out of all of our conversations has been, how do we get faculty involved in a spot that we can all work together collaboratively on what potentially this could be in the future in a way that's not coming from a place of fear or coming from a place of feeling like we're going to be ostracized or not part of any of the conversations. But I'm going to be honest with you, that I had a gut check. I was a little bit scared and concerned and frustrated that potentially, you know, our division SBS was going to be on the table in terms of what a reorg or a restructure could look like. And so that's why coming back to the values and coming back to kind of what we want to do together, I think is probably the most important thing that we can do. And I think, you know, Pete, I appreciate the desire to have authentic, hard conversations and to make sure that we're doing those things. You know, I think the deans, we ask each other to kind of check each other when we feel like that's not happening. So that's kind of a commitment that we are making to each other. And I hope we can all kind of make that commitment here as leaders of the departments and programs that we do lead. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I just want to say that I was surprised. This was not this is how the structure is going to look and this is what we're going to do. At least that's not what we received from Trammer Elliott. So based on what we've received so far, I'm hopeful that that's not going to be the reality. And instead it's going to be communication both ways. Yeah.
You know, there's always fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
When things change, and if from a faculty standpoint, if it sets anyone's mind at ease, I've been here quite a while. And shortly after I was hired, my division went through a reorganization with merged with another division, and then several years later, it was separated back out and became its own division again. And I can just tell you from a faculty perspective, my day-to-day teaching experience didn't change one iota between the two. I was still teaching the same classes in the same way, in the same rooms. And so I think faculty need just kind of, I mean, yes, we want to be part of the conversation because I think we have some great ideas as a collective body, but just relax. It's not going to change your day-to-day function like you think it might. So if that helps, you know, hopefully it does.
If anything, I'm hoping that it makes it better, because there are some things that I can't do right now within the structure of the division. And if we potentially change things and embed services through this process, only going to make it so that I can support Margot's students when she says, Christina, I need help supporting XYZ.
And I think just to, I know you all have things to go to and we're supposed to end, so I'm sorry to leave this at the last, as the last item, but I figured it was big. I didn't want it to take over our whole time. But the thing that we came up with over all of our conversations, the two, it's really the commitments and the guiding principles. Those are kind of what we're pretty solid on, and that's what I'm presenting today. And we're hoping from that we can come up with something that's going to be great for the campus going forward. So thank you, and definitely shoot me comments. Yeah. Good rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. One more.
I know. Good job, Trish, Tram. I'll see you in a little bit. Yeah, we'll be right up. Yeah.
No. Yeah, those are the ones, the individual.